I had always thought that nothing could come between me and Anna. We were like sisters, bound by more than just friendship, our lives entwined in the way only best friends can be. We'd been through everything together. Late-night talks about our dreams and fears, endless hours of studying, and even the worst moments of heartbreak. Anna knew me better than anyone else, and I thought I knew her just as well. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and I wasn't prepared for the one that hit me the hardest. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I had just finished a long week of exams and was looking forward to unwinding with Anna. We'd planned a little movie marathon in her apartment, the kind of evening we'd had 100 times before. She was already sitting on the couch, her legs tucked under her, a half-empty bowl of popcorn on the table in front of her. She looked more serious than usual, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. Something was off. "Hey," I said, walking into the room trying to sound casual. "What's up? You look like you're about to tell me you're moving to a different country or something." Anna gave me a small, tight smile. "Actually, it's kind of a big deal," she said, her voice wavering slightly. I sat next to her, my heart beating a little faster. "Hey, Spill. What's going on?" She took a deep breath and then turned toward me, her face serious. "I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I froze, unsure of how to process what she had just said. For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard her correctly, but the look on her face told me that I had. "Wait, what?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "How? Who?" Anna's eyes darted to the floor and she bit her lip. "It's James's. James. My ex-boyfriend. The guy I had been with for 2 years, the one I had loved with everything I had. The guy I had broken up with 6 months ago because I found out he wasn't as committed as I thought. And now he was the father of my best friend's child." 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but none of them made any sense. How could this happen? How could Anna, my best friend, get involved with James in the first place, let alone end up pregnant by him? "You and James?" I asked, my voice trembling. "When? How long has this been going on?" Anna looked at me with a mix of guilt and hesitation. "It wasn't planned. Just happened. We started talking more after you guys broke up, and one thing led to another. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her how she could betray me like this, how she could be so reckless. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there in stunned silence, trying to process the fact that my ex and my best friend were going to have a baby together. "Anna, this is insane," I finally said, my voice cracking. "I don't even know what to say right now. This is too much. I need some time to think." "I understand," she said quietly, her eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you. Please try to understand." But all I could think about was how everything had changed. My life, my relationship with Anna, my relationship with James. Everything felt like it was falling apart. I stood up abruptly, my mind spinning. "I need to go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to think." Without waiting for her response, I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the apartment, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to get away from this, from them, from everything. As I walked aimlessly through the streets, the shock started to settle in. I couldn't believe what had just happened. James, the guy I had loved, was now going to be tied to my best friend in the most permanent way possible. I had always imagined that if Anna and James ever got together, it would be after a lot of time had passed, after I had moved on. But this was a betrayal I couldn't wrap my head around. I found myself standing in a small park, my phone in my hand. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I was angry. I was hurt. I was confused. But most of all, I was scared. What did this mean for me? For us? I stared at my phone, contemplating whether or not to call James. I didn't want to speak to him, but I knew I had to. This wasn't just about Anna anymore. It was about the two of them and how their actions had just turned my world upside down. With trembling hands, I dialed his number. James picked up after the first ring. "Hey, it's me," he said, his voice casual. Too casual. I took a deep breath. "I know about Anna," I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to stay calm. "I know she's pregnant." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "I didn't want you to find out like this. I never meant to hurt you." "Well, you did," I snapped, the tears threatening to spill over. "This is all a mess, James. I don't know what to think right now. You and Anna, are you really going to do this? You're having a baby together?" I never planned for any of this to happen, he said, his voice filled with regret. But we're going to figure it out. We need your help. My heart dropped. What do you mean, we need your help? I'm asking you to be there for us, he said, his voice pleading. This is going to be hard for Anna and she needs support. I need support. Please don't shut me out. I felt like I was drowning in emotions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. James, the guy who had broken my heart, was now asking me to help him raise a child with the one person I trusted more than anyone. It was too much. I don't know if I can do this, James, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need time to think. I understand, he said quietly, his tone full of regret. But please think about it. We can't do this alone. I hung up the phone, my mind spinning. How could he ask me for help? After everything that had happened, after the way he had hurt me, he thought I'd just step in and be there for him? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I could turn to. All I knew was that my life was never going to be the same again. I spent the next few days in a haze. I couldn't focus on anything. My work, my friends, my own life. All I could think about was Anna's pregnancy and James's request for help. It felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare where everything I knew was slipping through my fingers. I didn't know how to face Anna. Every time I saw her, my mind would flash back to the moment she told me about the pregnancy, and the way she had looked at me with those wide, pleading eyes. She had wanted my support, but all I could feel was betrayal. She had known how much I had loved James, how much he meant to me. How could she not have known what this would do to me? Yet at the same time I understood that Anna wasn't the villain here. She hadn't set out to hurt me. They hadn't planned this, at least not in the way I thought. But that didn't make the situation any easier. In fact, it made it all the more complicated. I tried to distract myself, burying myself in work, but nothing worked. I would find myself lost in thought, wondering how this had all happened. Anna and James were having a baby together, and I was expected to be part of it. One evening, as I sat in my apartment scrolling through my phone, I received a message from Anna. It was a long text, one that she had obviously written with a lot of thought. I hesitated before opening it, unsure if I was ready to hear what she had to say. But I couldn't put it off any longer. I know things are really messed up right now. I didn't want this to happen, and I'm so sorry that it's hurt you. But I need you in my life, and I need you to be a part of this. I know it's a lot to ask, but please don't walk away from me. I need my best friend now more than ever. I can't do this alone. I stared at the message for a long time, my finger hovering over the reply button. I could feel the weight of Anna's words pressing down on me. I knew she was asking for something big. She wanted my forgiveness, my support. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could give it to her. I spent the entire night wrestling with my emotions. On one hand, I loved Anna like a sister. She had been my rock for so many years, and I didn't want to lose her. But on the other hand, I couldn't ignore the fact that she had crossed a line. She had betrayed me, and she had done it with the one person who had once meant everything to me. The next day, I found myself standing in front of her apartment, unsure of what I was going to say. I hadn't spoken to her in days, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face her. But deep down I knew I had to. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding in my chest. When Anna opened it, her face was tired, but there was a hopeful look in her eyes. She was waiting for me to say something, anything. I got your message, I said, my voice hoarse. I've been thinking about it. A lot. Please don't be mad at me, she said, her voice trembling. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't know what else to do. I don't want to lose you too. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Anna, I'm not mad. I'm just hurt. This is hard for me. I don't know what to feel. I don't know if I can just pick up where we left off like nothing's changed. I don't expect that, she said quickly, her hands wringing together. I just want you to be there for me, even if it's just a little bit. I don't want to do this without you. Please, I need you. I stepped inside, not sure if I was doing the right thing, but too exhausted to argue. Anna led me to the couch and we both sat down, the silence stretching between us. You know that I can't be part of this the way you want me to, I said quietly. I can't just forget everything that's happened. But that doesn't mean I don't care about you. It doesn't mean I'm going to walk away from you forever. Anna looked relieved, but her eyes were still full of concern. So what does that mean? What do we do now? I don't know, I admitted. I'm not sure what the future holds. But I think I need some time to process this. I need space to figure out where I fit into all of this. Anna nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I understand. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I could see how much this was weighing on her, and for the first time in days, I felt a small pang of sympathy. She was scared just like I was. She was about to bring a child into the world with a man who had once been a huge part of my life. I didn't know if she was ready for the responsibility, but I couldn't keep blaming her for everything that had gone wrong. I just need you to know, Anna continued, her voice breaking, that I never meant for this to ruin our friendship. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either, I said softly. But I can't promise you anything. I need to take care of myself first. We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of our words hanging in the air. I didn't know what the future held for Anna and me. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her completely, or if I'd be able to move on from everything that had happened. But I did know one thing. I needed to take control of my own life again. I needed to heal before I could even think about helping her. As I left Anna's apartment that afternoon, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world had changed forever. Everything I had known, my friendship with Anna, my relationship with James, had been shattered. And now I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces. It had been a few weeks since I had spoken to Anna, and during that time I tried to focus on myself. I threw myself into my work, spent time with other friends, and even started taking up new hobbies. It was my way of coping, of taking back some semblance of control over my life. I couldn't keep dwelling on what had happened, especially with Anna and James. But still, the situation weighed on my mind. I tried to avoid any contact with Anna at first. I thought that time and space would help both of us heal, but it wasn't long before she reached out again. I received a text from her one afternoon, a simple message that read, "I miss you. Can we talk? I don't want to lose our friendship." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart torn. I missed her too. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to face her yet. I didn't know if I could forgive her for everything that had happened, or if I could ever look at her the same way again. After a long internal battle, I decided to meet with her. I needed closure, and I needed to know if there was any chance we could salvage our friendship. I agreed to meet at a cafe we used to go to frequently, a place where we'd spent many hours talking and laughing. It felt fitting, though the nerves were creeping in with every step I took toward the entrance. When I walked in, Anna was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked up as I entered, and her face softened with relief. Her eyes were red from what I assumed were tears, and she didn't look like the confident, bubbly person I had always known. She looked vulnerable, and that somehow made me feel even more conflicted. "Hey," I said softly as I approached the table. "How are you?" Anna gave me a weak smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I've been better. I've been thinking about everything about us, and I don't know where to start." I sat down across from her, my hands folding on the table in front of me. I wasn't sure what to say either, but I knew we couldn't keep dancing around the issues that had brought us here. "I think we both need to talk about what happened," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've had a lot of time to think, and I know I'm not the only one who's been affected by this. You and James are about to have a baby. That's huge, and I know it's a lot for both of you. But it's hurtful for me." "I know," Anna said quickly, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know how to explain it. I was scared, and James. I don't know what happened with him. Just happened. And I never thought it would come to this." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I get that things happen. But you should have told me. You should have come to me instead of hiding everything from me. I get that you were scared, but I don't understand why you didn't think about how this would hurt me. You knew how much James meant to me." "I didn't know what to do," she said, shaking her head. "I was so lost. And I didn't want to lose you too. I thought that if I could just keep it hidden for a while, maybe it would all go away." I let out a long breath. I wanted to be angry at her. I wanted to scream and tell her how much she had betrayed me, but part of me understood. She was scared, and she was trying to navigate a situation that was just as complicated for her as it was for me. This wasn't just about me, it was about her too. "I don't know if I can just go back to how things were," I admitted quietly. "I don't know if I can forgive you, not just for what you did with James, but for all the lies and the secrecy. It's hard to trust you right now." "I understand," Anna said, her voice breaking. "But I need you to know from the bottom of my heart that I never wanted to hurt you. I never meant to destroy our friendship. I don't know how to fix it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the person I had once considered my best friend. She was broken just like me. And maybe, just maybe, there was a chance we could rebuild what we had. If we both worked at it. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you yet, I said, my voice soft but firm. But I'm willing to try. I want to be there for you, Anna. Just don't ask me to forget everything. It's going to take time. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll wait as long as you need. I just want you in my life again. We sat there for a while longer, talking about everything that had happened and the future we both had ahead of us. The conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. There was a lot of healing that needed to take place, and I wasn't sure if we'd ever get back to where we were, but I knew that this was the first step. As I left the cafe, I felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. The weight of the past few weeks was still hanging over me, but I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The weeks following my conversation with Anna were a blur. I spent a lot of time reflecting on our past, the good and the bad, and what it meant for our future. I knew that forgiving her wasn't going to be easy, but I also realized that holding on to my anger and hurt wasn't helping either of us. I had to make a choice. Either I could continue to let this situation drive a wedge between us, or I could try, however reluctantly, to move forward. In the days that followed, Anna and I slowly began to rebuild our friendship. We didn't pick up right where we left off. It was more like we were starting from scratch, unsure of how to navigate the delicate ground between us. I spent time with her, but I kept my distance emotionally. I wasn't ready to fully trust her again, and I didn't think it was fair to either of us to pretend that everything was okay when it wasn't. I also found myself thinking about James. He had been such an important part of my life, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal from him as well. The way he had just disappeared after everything happened, the way he didn't try to reach out or explain himself. It hurt. It made me wonder if his feelings for me had ever been real, or if I had just been another chapter in a story he had moved on from. I avoided him as much as I could, refusing to pick up his calls or answer his texts. I didn't want to talk to him, not yet and maybe not ever. I didn't know how to handle the situation with him. The idea of him asking for my help in raising a child he had with my best friend was too much to even consider. I couldn't be the person he turned to, not after everything that had happened. One evening, after another difficult day of trying to balance my emotions, I was sitting alone in my apartment when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something about it felt familiar. I hesitated before answering, unsure of what to expect. When I picked up, I immediately recognized the voice on the other end. "Hey, it's James," he said, his voice tentative. "I know we haven't talked in a while, but I needed to reach out. We need to talk." I froze, my heart racing in my chest. I didn't want to talk to him. I wasn't ready to hear what he had to say, but I also knew that avoiding him forever wasn't going to make this situation go away. Slowly, I exhaled and nodded, even though I knew he couldn't see me. "I don't know if I'm ready to talk to you," I replied honestly. "But if you really think we need to, I'll hear you out. But don't expect me to just forgive you right away." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell he was struggling with what to say next. "I get it," he finally said. "But I need you to know that I never wanted things to end this way. I messed up. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I'm not proud of how things turned out." "Then why didn't you try to fix it?" asked, my voice sharp. "Why didn't you reach out to me when everything fell apart?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess I didn't know how. I thought if I gave you space, maybe you'd come to me. But I see now that I was wrong. I should have tried harder." I paused, letting his words sink in. I didn't know if he was being sincere, but part of me wanted to believe he was. Still, the hurt I felt ran deep, and I wasn't sure if I could just let it all go. "I don't know if I can just forgive you, James," I said quietly. "But I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. Just understand that it's not going to be easy." "I understand," he said softly. I want to make things right, even if it's just a little bit." We talked for a while longer, the conversation awkward and strained. He apologized repeatedly, and though I appreciated the effort, I knew that words alone weren't going to fix what had happened. It would take time, and I wasn't sure if time would be enough. After we hung up, I felt drained. I hadn't expected him to reach out, but now that he had, I realized I wasn't sure where I stood with him. The emotions were too complicated, and I needed space to process everything. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work, friends, and moments of quiet reflection. Anna and I spent more time together, but there was always an underlying tension between us. I didn't know if we would ever be able to go back to the way things were, but I also knew that I didn't want to lose her. I just couldn't afford to ignore the hurt I felt, and I had to be honest with myself and with her about what I needed. I continued to avoid James, not responding to his messages or calls. I wasn't ready to face him, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. The thought of him being a part of Anna's life, of him being the father of her child, was still too raw for me to handle. But despite all the uncertainty, I knew one thing for sure. My life was changing, and I had to learn how to adapt. I had to figure out what kind of person I wanted to be moving forward. I had to decide if I was going to let the past define me, or if I was going to find a way to move past it, even if it meant doing it alone. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. The healing process was slow, but I could feel myself shifting, adapting. I started to focus more on my own life, my own goals, and it was oddly liberating. My work flourished, and I dove into new projects that brought me a sense of purpose. But even as I grew, the shadow of the past still lingered, and I couldn't help but wonder if things would ever truly be the same again. Anna and I continued to stay in touch, though the friendship we shared before had irrevocably changed. We didn't talk every day, but we'd meet up once a week for coffee or lunch where we'd talk about life, work, and the future. The conversations were often awkward, but we were both trying, and that effort was enough for me to maintain some semblance of connection with her. It wasn't easy. The trust that had been shattered couldn't be rebuilt overnight. But I was learning to let go of the anger, to move forward without carrying that weight with me. I wasn't entirely sure I could ever forget the betrayal, but I realized that holding on to it wasn't going to help either of us heal. It was a delicate balance, one that took patience and a lot of hard work. As for James, I continued to avoid him. He would occasionally reach out, asking if we could talk, but I wasn't ready. The idea of him being involved in Anna's life, of him being a father to her child, was still too much for me to process. I couldn't bring myself to face him, not yet. The wounds were still too fresh, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to confront him and all the emotions he stirred up in me. But one day I got a text from Anna. It was a simple message asking if I would be willing to meet with James. She explained that he had been trying to make amends, and she thought it might be helpful for all of us to sit down together. I stared at the message for a long time, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I knew that avoiding him forever wasn't the solution either. After a few hours of deliberation, I finally replied, "Hey, but I'm not making any promises. I'm doing this for you, not for him." Anna replied almost immediately, thanking me for agreeing. She assured me that it would just be a casual meeting, not an attempt to force anything between us. She just wanted to see if we could come to some kind of understanding. The day of the meeting arrived, and I found myself sitting in a small cafe, staring at my phone and waiting for them to show up. My heart was racing, my palms sweating. I wasn't sure what to expect. I had no idea how this conversation would go, or if I was even ready to hear what James had to say. When they walked in, I could feel the tension in the air. Anna looked apprehensive, but she offered me a small smile as if to reassure me that everything would be okay. James, on the other hand, looked nervous, almost like he didn't know what to say. His eyes met mine briefly, and I could see the regret there, but I wasn't sure if that was enough. We sat down, and for a long moment none of us spoke. It felt like we were all waiting for someone else to break the silence, but no one knew where to begin. Finally, it was James who spoke first. "Look, I know I messed up," he said, his voice quieter than I remembered. "I shouldn't have done what I did with Anna. I shouldn't have hurt you like that. And I'm not expecting you to forgive me, but I want to make things right. I want to be there for Anna, for the baby, but I also want to fix things with you if I can." I stared at him, trying to read his expression, trying to figure out if he was being genuine. Part of me wanted to believe him, but the other part of me was still holding on to the hurt, still unsure if I could ever trust him again. "You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal," I said, my voice steady but firm. "What happened between us, what happened with Anna, it's not something that can be fixed with words. You've done a lot of damage, and it's going to take time for me to even consider forgiving you." James nodded, looking down at the table. "I get it. I know I've messed up, and I'm not asking for things to go back to the way they were. I want to do better. I want to show you that I can be someone you can trust, even if that takes time." Anna sat quietly, watching us both as if giving us space to work through this on our own. It was clear that she was hoping for some kind of resolution, but I wasn't sure if that was even possible. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I did before," I said after a long pause. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way. But I'm willing to try for Anna's sake. For the baby. James looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't expect things to be easy, but I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." The conversation continued for a while longer, but it was clear that there was still a lot of healing to be done. We didn't walk away from that meeting with everything solved, but it felt like a step in the right direction. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we could find a way forward. As I left the cafe, I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't over, but it was a start. And sometimes that's all you can ask for.